to Thái, dear Patriarch Nhất Định, dear Sangha. Today is the 30th of October in the year 2022. We are in the new hamlet on a mindfulness day. We have gone through half of the rain retreat, and we still have another halfway to go. Today is the commemoration day of our patriarch, Master Nhất Định, who founded the root temple Tư Hiếu. Today's the when I put my feet on this podium, I felt I was making a step on the moon. I was aware that I was walking, and as I put my foot on the podium, I felt like I'm walking on the moon. And as I'm listening to the bell, I was breathing and also feeling my heart, my rapid heartbeat. So I like to invite everyone, the audience, to breathe for me, because when there's calm breathing in the audience, then there's no, then the heart breathe will be support the heart, my heart also. I want to share one thing is that when we have an opportunity to come together on a day of mindfulness like this, the most precious thing is to return to practice together. And everything else is insignificant. The most significant thing is to return to return to ourselves, our body, our breath, our steps, and we enjoy it. And the Dharma Talk, the food or the practice of Dharma are important, but not as important as being able to dwell in the present moment and to flow together, to participate in this river of the Sangha. And we cultivate the insight that we are learning and practicing, acting as a Sangha, that each one of us is a cell in the Sangha body. And even though we may have met for the first time, and that we're coming from different countries, different places, and we meet here in this practicing environment, perhaps we may have already met, and that now is the call from our heart that take us back to this place so that we can practice together. And when we sit in the heart of the Sangha, in the middle of the Sangha, it brings joy and happiness. And this is called, the Sangha gives rise to joy and happiness. We are happy, we are joyful, just being able to sit in the middle of the Sangha, to breathe and to feel the energy that everyone is generating in this meditation hall. We are aware that the next person is also sitting and breathing. The person on the right also is sitting and breathing with us. And the peace and our happiness that we generate are also affecting other people around us. Also affects the joy and the happiness of the people surrounding us. Today is the commemoration day of the patriarch who founded our root temple. I'd like us to return to ourselves, to a breath in order to give rise to gratitude to our uh, patriarch who founded the root temple when he was old in age. He asked to resign all his position as the abbot. He was the abbot of Bảo Quốc Temple in Huế. He asked the king Duty to resign his position as the leader of the monks' congregation, the king's teacher. And he resigned all these positions. When he wrote his resignation letter, the king Duty was so happy that the king accepted his resignation, and he was so happy. He said that as an old monk, I am now free. I am not tied down to positions and responsibilities. He was a Tangkang, it's like a teacher. He's the abbot of a really huge temple, and he has the support of the royal. It's a royal temple. And after that, he went to the mountain Yengsung and chosen a piece of land to build a little hut. And he brought his mom also to that little hut along with his 3 young disciples. And so they practice together, they chant together, they work in the garden together, plow the land together. So he went to the mountain in 1843. And he only lived there for 5 years because in 1848 he passed away. And we are grateful that he had set aside those 5 years to find a place to live, to dwell peacefully and to practice wholeheartedly. And it was the opportunity for him to transmit the fruits of his practice, his insights to his students. And thanks to that, his students were able to maintain that spiritual lineage, that spiritual strength to the later generations. One day, while reevaluating and looking back in his life with a lot of respect and gratitude, I was able to come in touch. I saw the image of the patriarch and the 3 disciples working in the garden, plowing the land in order to grow vegetable. And they were resting under a tree with very thick foliage, and that image came by really fast. But it gave me the insight that I was also there with the patriarch. And I was there with his disciples. I felt that the past wasn't just belonging to the past, but it is but it is in the present moment. And what is happening in the present is not just separated from the past, and that space and time has no separation. And I have a strong conviction that the past is now in the present moment, and that the patriarchs are still here with his descendants now and also in the future. And in those 5 years, he took good care of his mother. Maybe conditions, materialistic conditions were not sufficient. The doctor recommended that his mother had to take tonic supplements. And as a monastic living in such poor condition, what would be useful for for his mother? And during the time, there's a lot of the monastic, when they live monastic life, they also cut off from their family. But as Master Patriarch, he was taking care of his mother, so he was in a way going against the tradition of that time, and there was a lot of gossips and talk about him taking care of his mother. And one day he went down to the market, and the market was about 3 kilometers from his hut. And he bought a fish. He could have asked the lay friends to buy them so that he can cook soup for his mother, but he went there himself. He went there by himself to buy them and brought the fish back. And people look at it really strangely, because he was a teacher of the king, a teacher of so many people, and now he is buying fish. What would he do with that fish? And then they create a lot of stories around him buying that fish. And then these rumors went to the king, and the king was really curious. He hurried to the temple, to the hut, to ask the patriarch, what was he doing with that fish? And as the king approached the hut, he saw the patriarch offering his mother this bowl of fish soup, and he understood immediately what that fish was for. So that gesture, that action, is an action of breaking through the forms, not tied down to traditions. And he was doing it with so much love. First of all, it was his love toward his mom, his mother, but another reason was to eliminate gossips and rumors among people. And so when he passed away, the root temple was built right where that his hut was, and the name was given Từ Hiếu. Từ Hiếu was coming from that quality of the patriarch being having filial piety towards his mom and having loving kindness. And thanks to his virtue, his practice, that in that hut, that it had started our temple tradition, and it had passed down over the generations to our teacher. Thầy had went to the root temple and ordained as a monk. And so now we are sitting here, But in the lineage, in our spiritual lineage, we know that we are the children of the patriarch. When the monks and the nuns were chanting up here, and I felt like we were chanting at the fruit temple with all these the sounds of the Dharma instruments. So I like to invite us to listen to the sound of the bell, to breathe, and allow ourselves to touch deeply our body, our mind, our gratitude.
Last time we listened to a Dharma talk about the teaching of appropriate to the circumstance and also appropriate to the Dharma, to the Buddha's teaching. And now I would like to invite all of you to look into this teaching in the way that we look into our body and mind. We look into our practice. We often use this teaching to look deeply into the consciousness and the need of other people to share the teaching. But now I would like to invite you to look into your body and mind. Khế lý, appropriate to the Buddha's teaching. So we choose the teaching that is appropriate to our body and mind. Khế cơ, it means that how much do we understand our body and mind. Cơ, it means the situation of our body and mind. Do we understand how is our body and mind? How does it function? So I asked the CTC of New Hamlet prepare the text that you can look into. It's the text of 51 mental formations. We can learn a little bit. This is the autumn, the time to weeding, to give nutrition to the trees, and also to do the compost. So we can look into, like as a farmer, we look into the situation of our body and mind to take care of the land of our mind so that we can have the fruits in the springtime. So we can look into page number 2. We see that we have 6 primary unwholesome klesha. The craving, the hatred, the third one is the ignorance, confusion. The fourth one is arrogance. The fifth one is doubt and suspicion. And the sixth one is wrong view. When we say kiến, it means wrong view. So these are the 6 primary unwholesome mental formations. From these 6 primary unwholesome mental formations, they give rise to other 20 secondary unwholesome mental formations. It's from page 2 and page 3. You can find 20 secondary unwholesome mental formations. They were born from these 6 primary unwholesome mental formations. We have 20 secondary unwholesome mental formation. From the craving, the greed, we see that among 20 secondary unwholesome mental formation, which one is born, which one is associated with greed and craving. We have the number 6 in the 20. We have the selfishness and parsimony. The selfishness. And from that selfishness, it leads to the deceitfulness. And sim, it means we is the guilt, guile. What is it? Guile, and this, the desire to harm others. And from the 6 primary unwholesome, we have the hatred, mental formation. It also give rise to other mental formations like anger, resentment. The first 2 mental formations in the 20 secondary unwholesome mental formations. Some people, they compare our hatred, our anger, like the fire that burn very easily. If something unpleasant, it can give rise to the anger very easily. Something that doesn't go in our way, when the weather is not nice, and many little things, we can give rise to anger, irritation. It's like the fire from the straw. It's very easy to get burnt, and it burns very quickly. And that is the mental formation of anger, of hatred. Any little unpleasant things can give rise to this. And the phẫn, it means the so sorry. The phẫn, it means really the anger, and the sân is the hatred. So the phẫn, the anger is stronger. It's like the fire from the wood. Is when it's burned, it burns very strongly. And that mental formation can make people feel hurt, and the resentment. The resentment is like the fire from coal. It doesn't manifest strongly, but it can burn, it can melt, it can destroy any precious things like the gold or the jewel. If we put in that coal fire, it can burn everything. So the resentment, the enmity is we see that sometimes we feel deeply hurt and we cannot approach that person. We catch all the relationship with that person, and it stay in our heart quite a long time, like the fire from coal. Mm, Now is the next one. The maliciousness is like the fire that lie deep the the s- in the ash. Is it the fire is just silently in the ash, but if we put some paper, some thing, it can burn, it can come up right away. So our sadness, our is still there. It's not strong enough. It's not strong enough for us to speak something that hurts people. But when it is accumulated, then day by day like that, one day it will manifest. That is our sadness. And sometimes the mental formation sung hatred go together with the mental formation si, mean ignorance, confusion. When we are when we are angry, we are not. Our mind is not clear anymore. We we are confused, and we act in a way that we will regret later. That's why our teacher said that whenever we feel irritated or angry, we don't do anything. We allow ourselves to come back to ourselves and follow our breathing or enjoy walking outside. It's easier speak than done. It sounds simple, but it's not easy when we put it into practice. Because the the unpleasant feelings, the irritation is happening around us, so that we need to train ourselves to accept and let go these unpleasant feelings and the irritation in us. And the fourth in the sixth primary unwholesome mental formation is arrogance. This mental formation, arrogance, is associated with the mental formation pride. Pride and lack of inner shame, lack of shame before others. Vô tàm, vô quý. And our doubt, our mental formation of doubt and suspicion is also connected to the mental formation of no faith, lack of faith, and lack of discernment. I asked the CTC to print out these copies so that you can spend time at home to look deeply into these mental formations. I don't think we have time to go into details, and it's not easy. But when you are at home, you can spend time looking deeply into these mental formations and see which kind of unwholesome mental formation that often come up in our mind, and where is it located in our body, and so that we can take better care of them. Like a gardener, we need to know quite well which plants in our garden are the flowers, or which one is weed, because there are kinds of weed, it just come up a little bit on the surface, but when we dig deeply into the earth, there's a lot of, like a family deep down in the earth, and it's not easy for us to uproot them. But if we have a tool, and we have a strong aspiration to uproot these mental formation, these weed so that we can plant the flowers in our garden. And when we can uproot these weed, we are happy. We're so happy. And we want to dig more and more because now we know how to do it. We want to take all the roots of the wheat so that we have the space to plant the flowers. So studying this mental formation is something very interesting so that you can understand your mind more clearly. And when we understand deeply our mind, it means keker. It means that we know the function of our body and mind, so that our practice can be easier, can be more appropriate to the situation of our body and mind. We know how it manifests. We know how these mental formation come together and how it go back to the store consciousness. So when the mental formation hasn't manifest in the consciousness, it is called a seed, a bija. And when a seed manifests in our consciousness, it is called a mental formation. And when it manifests so often, it becomes a habit of anger, of worry. And when a seed manifests as a mental formation, if we don't know how to recognize and embrace it, it forms into a kind of internal knot. And when it has become an internal knot, it's not easy to transform. It takes a lot of efforts, a lot of time to transform. And when it becomes an internal knot, it takes a lot of space in front of us. It prevents us from seeing clearly. And it is that mental formation push us to think, to act, to speak in such a way that cause suffering to ourselves and others. And to transform the internal knots, it requires a lot of practice, a lot of love, so that we can transform it. It requires a lot of strong determination, strong concentration to transform the internal knots in us. Otherwise, the transformation in us are not from the base.
When we have the opportunity to look deeply our body and mind, look into our body and mind, to learn the Dharma, the teachings from our teacher, Thai, from the Sangha, and we can find a door, a Dharma door, a Dharma door that is appropriate to our body, our mind, to our mentality, to our needs. And how do we know that this practice or this Dharma door is appropriate for me? Whether this teaching is appropriate for me? How do we know? And the answer lies in our practice and our studies. When we practice and when we learn, we see that this practice nourishes us, it heals us, it helps to transform it, and we are able to come in touch with moments of very profound experience. That means that this practice is the right Dharma door for us, and we continue to practice and continue to cultivate it. So I'd like to invite the Sangha to find time to reflect on ourselves, to see if we have found an appropriate Dharma door to nourish our body and mind, to see if we have a Dharma door that we like, we enjoy, that we can put our wholeheartedness into it, to discover our body and mind. In the poem written by Thái, a teacher looking for the student, and there's a line that says that the teacher and disciple have stepped into the space, outer space, and we're able to touch the light of the stars, of the shooting stars. After months of practice and of searching, and thanks to the practice, that we are able to break through this curtain of space, and thanks to the practice of contemplating on non-self, on impermanence, on interbeing, that we are able to break through the idea of separation and segregation between past, present, and future, between here and there, between birth and death. We are able to break through this curtain, this net, thanks to the practice, to the daily practice. And a light will come from within us. We're able to touch that light, and that flash of light can go through. It's like a lightning that just go past our consciousness very fast, our mind very fast. Just like a thunder, that it can be, a flash of thunder can take place really quickly. And those are moments that we can feel, we know the truth of birth and death. We know what true happiness is and what letting go is. And these experiences are not outside of our daily practices. It is in the way we breathe. It's the way we walk. It's the way we practice together at the practice sessions with the Sangha, such as eating, drinking, and walking. So these experiences are not outside of these daily practices and daily activities. And so these daily practices helps us to tap into something that is really profound, that this something that transcends space and time, and this is called the ultimate dimension, the ultimate reality. So if we have these kind of experiences, these little moments of being able to tap into the ultimate dimension, that is really precious, and it will shine the light for our path, our life, and it helps to cultivate a deep faith in ourselves with these practices, and that we can apply these practices so that it can help to transform our body and our mind. And this faith, this confidence comes from our own cultivation, from our own practice. So let us listen to a sound of the bell for us to breathe together. And also, we'd like to invite the friends in the Buddha Hall to practice with us. Thầy had built the practice and the Sangha according to my understanding that Thầy had make use of the insight of interpenetration as the foundation to build the Sangha. And in our practice also, we are practicing in that direction of using the teachings of dwelling in the present moment to build the Sangha. And we are practicing on the foundation of this insight, these deep teachings. And we may have this insight, and through sharing, Dharma sharing, discussion, that we can also learn from other people's experiences, and so that we can see clearly practices that are appropriate for us, that are healing for our body and our mind. And when we find an appropriate practice, appropriate Dharma door, then we can put our heart and energy in practicing them. So I'd like to stand up. I'd like to stand up. My heart now has calmed. I'd like to stand up to write something on the board. Today, I want to talk about, and I want to try touching on the topic of engaged Buddhism that had taken place during the reign of the Trần dynasty, the King Trần Tông in the 13th century, 13th century in Vietnam. And Thầy shared that when Thầy was studying at Bảo Quốc Temple, Bảo Quốc, it was really difficult for Thầy to really see the path to help people and to really to really see a path for himself and for other people, because it was during the warring time in Vietnam, and Thầy had a chance to reflect on the history of Vietnam during the reign of the King Trần Tông, and how the king had used to practice the Buddha's teachings to build the country, and they were able to create 400 years of peace. And Thầy had seen that and realized that if Thầy make use of all his time and energy to learn Buddhism and to take out the beauties and the goodness, in the teachings to share with people, then maybe Thầy can create a path for everybody. And in order to help go through the war and also to end the war. And with that insight, Thầy left Vietnam, left Huế, left Bảo Quốc school, temple, and went to the south. Because in the south, they were more progressive and there were more opportunities for Thầy to realize that deep aspiration. And so the king that had started the school, Buddhist school, the king that had used all his insight and experiences was, his name was Trần Nhân Tông. In the 13th century, 1258 to 2078. So the king was born alone and grew up. He was steeped in the teachings and very close to his grandfather, who was the king. His grandfather was the king. The king Trần Thái Tông. Trần Thái Tông was his grandfather. He's the second king of the Trần dynasty in Vietnam. So, 1308, and his grandfather was 1218 to 1277. His grandfather dethroned the year that the King Trần Nhân Tông was born. And Trần Nhân Tông became the king was in 1278. And about 20 years as the father of the king, his grandfather was close to his grandson, who was Trần Nhân Tông, and so Trần Nhân Tông had a lot of time and opportunity to be with his grandfather and with a lot of Buddhist teachers, prominent Buddhist teachers of the time. So Trần Thái Tông, his grandfather, became a king at 8 years old. And at 20 years old, many things had, many chaos and was taking place in the palace. So he left the palace and wanted to become a monk. From 8 to 20 years old, that's a lot of time in the palace, and he had witnessed a lot of changes And so he decided to leave the palace to the mountain to become a monk, to practice. But when he went to the mountain, there's a monk who said, "There's nothing up here. What are you looking for up here?" And the king said, "I am here to look for the Buddha. I'm here to become a Buddha." And the monk said, "The Buddha is in your heart, in your mind. If you practice so that all your afflictions fall away, then that's a Buddha." So that's the first teaching that he received. The first lesson he received was the faith that he himself can become a Buddha, that the Buddha is inside him, in his heart and mind. And during the time, the king continued to nourish that insight, to find the Buddha inside himself. And a couple of days later, the royal officials discovered the king on the mountain and wanted him to go back to the palace. And he said he doesn't want to be a king anymore. He wanted to live up here. And they were desperate. So they were desperate and they were forceful. And so he decided that he goes back to the palace. And the monk taught him that as a king, that he should take the needs of his people to be his own needs. So the aspiration, an aspiration inside, the people wanted to have peace. They wanted to have food to eat. They wanted happiness, and that the king should take on these aspirations, these desires of the people to be his own aspirations, his own desire. So that's what this monk had taught him. So he forcefully went back to the palace. And so during the time that he was a king, he was a good king, but he also made time to study, to practice, to learn the different Dharma doors so that he can apply them in his life as a king. And he had also invented and created many practices, and one of those practices were the begin and anew session, begin and anew practices. He has, during a day, he has 6 sessions of practice of begin and anew. So each session, it would be to begin anew with one of his sense organs. So his practice was to help the people have a path or lead a path of peace and happiness. And so when he was no longer the king, when he passed on the throne to his son, he continued to practice. And Trần Tông was his grandson. And during the childhood of Trần Tông, he was close to his grandfather and had learned the practices through his grandfather. And perhaps during the 6 sessions of begin and anew that his grandfather was conducting every day, that he also Trần Nhân Tông also participated in. And it's a beautiful image to have a grandfather and grandson um, practicing together. And these practices affected the king and also the other officials of the palace, and it created a very peaceful atmosphere in the palace. But it affected also their policies, their so when Trần Thái Tông passed away, a year after, Trần Nhân Tông became the king. So after his grandfather passed away for a year, Trần Nhân Tông ascended the throne. And so the father of Trần Nhân Tông was Trần Thánh Tông. So the king Trần Nhân Tông, when he was a child, when he was a king, there was one time he also wanted to leave the palace to become a monk on the mountain. And the same as with his grandfather, he was also forced to come back to the palace to continue his work as a king, his position as a king. So these two kings, they were not there. They don't have a desire to be kings. They have deep aspiration to practice. And so the spirit of engaged Buddhism, just as the desire, the aspiration to bring the teachings of the Buddha into the world, the king Trần Nhân Tông had realized it wholeheartedly. When he left, when he dethroned, so that his son can become king. So after he descended the throne, he became a monk. And the first lesson that he learned was living simply, living as a minimalist. So whenever he traveled, he walks bare feet. He would not use any means of transport. When he traveled from wherever he traveled, he would encourage and teach the people to let go of superstition and to practice the way of the Buddha, to practice the precepts. And so wherever he went, he practiced that. He did that to live simply and to encourage people to practice the precepts and to also to live a wholesome life. And so with a king, with his son as a king, serving the people with the practice, and with his father as a monk, traveling around the country to teach people to live a wholesome life is a beautiful. It's a beautiful and it's a precious. It's precious, and if we have a chance to learn the 10 poems that were written by Trần Nhân Tông, we can see that the king had received a lot of insights points from the teachings and practices. And when I read these poems, I felt how lucky the people were to be able to receive the teachings and the virtues of this king, someone who was a king who had practiced wholeheartedly as a king, and who had so much love and compassion, and then who later became a monk, and who had very deep, profound insight to offer to the country, to the people. And in this text of the 10 poems, you can see his deep thirst for the Dharma, his deep aspiration to find a path for the people, and his deep compassion. And that energy, this aspiration and this practice, he probably also encouraged his people to cultivate them as well. So he was, after he descended the throne, he was the advisor to his son, who became the king. But he was also practicing, and he was an inspiration to so many people in the country during that time. In fact, he started a tradition, a Zen tradition called Plum Meditation School. And this tradition, this school, is still in existence, still continuing. And so the mountain Yingtu is where he had lived and practiced as a monk. It's now a place where people are directing their attention and their love and their aspiration to, as a model for them.
The last poem in the 10 poems by the King Trần Nhân Tông, and this last poem is somehow it contains the main message of another 9 poems. Living in the daily life, we enjoy the conditions. When you are thirsty, you enjoy drinking. When you sleepy, you sleep. So the treasure that you are looking for is there in your home, is in you. And when you look into the things outside, you don't have kind of a discriminative mind between you, the subject, and the object. Then you get enlightened. Then you don't need to look for anything anymore. So the very essential things like eating, sleeping is very essential thing in our life. So we cannot live without food, without drinking, sleeping. But there are those who have enough material conditions. We have enough food, but somehow we don't enjoy it. There are moments we could not enjoy it. And there are moments we are so exhausted. Or we are thirsty, but somehow we don't enjoy the water that we drink. We don't know how to relax and how to rest. And we lie down on the bed, but we are unable to sleep. The worries, the anxiety just carry us away. And lying there, we are unable to sleep. So when I read this poem, I see that the king has a lot of freedom with him. When we are hungry, we eat. It means that we have the freedom, we have enough freedom inside. He has a lot of freedom in the 3 special aspects in the daily life. one sentence of a Zen master. I don't remember who the king say. The master say, the keep our mind as it is, just normal as it is the mind of a of life. Is the true mind, is the true path. So how to live our life, enjoy the normal life as it is. That is the art of a practice, the art of living. There are people who suffer, especially those who they have the trauma or the depression. They don't have the chance to see, to enjoy life as it is. And these people, they are unable to look at the reality as with the feel the rain, the wind in the normal way. But if we have if we can live our life normally with our sense organs, with our, and we can feel the taste of the water, of the food, we can sleep when needed. That is the joy, the happiness. When we are unable, when we cannot sleep, maybe we are full of loneliness inside, or we in our heart there is full of suffering. We can so we cannot sleep. That's why lying there we cannot sleep, and we just let all the suffering carry us away. Sometimes I'm not successful, but I train myself to embrace the suffering within me. I train myself to take care of the worries of the suffering in me with my love, my care, and my gratitude. We learn about mindfulness so that we can come back to breathe and embrace our body and mind. That's what we have learned. But we need to learn more how to embrace the suffering, the pain in our body and mind with love and gratitude. For example, if we don't have enough love and gratitude, the suffering in us, they don't allow us to embrace it. They don't allow us to touch, to embrace it. Because when we transform the suffering or the pain in us, we have the thought that what we want to transform or to is that we don't want to embrace that. We have the tendency to push it away because that makes us suffer. That brings the suffering to us, that isolate us. That's why we push away the suffering away. How can we do that? It is part of us. How can we do when it is part of us? So we need to learn to get in touch with these mental formation, with these seed, with love and gratitude. How can we express our gratitude to a seed of anger or a seed of anxiety in us? If we cannot love these seeds, who else can love them? So when the love come up in us, the gratitude come up in us, then that seed in us can feel that love, that gratitude, and allow us to approach it closer. And it allow us to embrace it with love and gratitude. And gradually, beat by beat, we learn to be present, to understand and love those seeds of suffering in us. When we are mindful, when we have the gratitude in our heart, when we have love and care, then we can embrace the suffering, the sorrows in us, and at the same time, we can invite anyone into our heart, can invite anyone to sit with us, to walk with us. We can invite our Father to walk by our feet. If we know how to enjoy the mindful walking, and if we can give rise to the love and gratitude to our Father, then we can invite our Father to walk with us. But if we are mindful only, mindfulness is not enough to help us. We need to have the love and gratitude together with mindfulness so that it can help us to embrace. Because when we have the love and gratitude in our heart, then it is easier to be mindful. So it's the same to our teacher or to the Buddha. If you spend 1 week to practice with that, I don't guarantee with you because in the practice there is no guarantee, because when but I have faith, I have trust, I have the faith in that practice. I just invite you to try it. You don't lose anything. When you have 1 week or 2 weeks or more than that in Plum Village, try to practice that. When you sit, you look deeply in and ask yourself, is there anything that you love and you feel grateful to? Someone in your life or something around you, and you can spend 1 week just for that subject. When you sit, when you walk, when you eat, and if you feel inspired, you can expand that time of practice. We have 5 sense organs. And from these 5 sense organs, it gives rise to the 5 powers. The 5 powers is, the first one is faith, diligence, mindfulness, concentration, and insight. The mindfulness, concentration, and insight are the 3 trainings, or are the three kinds of insight. Concentration is also a kind of insight. Tông is the diligence. So now I would like to invite you all to look deeply and learn together and to practice together with me about the power of aspiration. Another kind of power, the energy, the power of aspiration. The faith from our practice can give rise to a very powerful energy, but our aspiration can also give rise another kind of power. For example, when we have the aspiration to receive the 5 trainings or 14 trainings or Bhikshu, Bhikshuni precepts, our aspiration, when we give rise to those aspirations, a kind of energy come up in us, helping us to go in this direction, not the other directions. When our habit energy come up, we take refuge in our aspiration energy. Remember the moment when we stand in front of our teacher and the sangha to make this aspiration, and it helps us. For the 2 kings that have great impact in the Vietnamese Buddhism history, these 2 kings have a deep faith, but also has strong aspiration. The strong aspiration to bring the light of Buddhism into the world and continue to transmit this energy, these powers into the world. And the energy, the power of aspiration is the heart of the Bodhisattva path. When we receive the 5 trainings or the 14 mindfulness trainings, this is the chance for us to enter a wide path. The path that helps us to let go the fame, the power, the sensual desire, and to walk on the wide path of a Bodhisattva, we really need a strong aspiration. Otherwise, after a while, then we lose energy. We have no more energy for the practice. Therefore, after a while on the path of practice, we need to renew our aspiration. Receiving the 5 trainings of 14 or receiving the Lamb as a Dharma teacher is not enough. In our daily life, we need to renew our aspiration again and again. And we know that in our tradition, where do we practice? Our aspiration lies in each gatha, the gatha of practice. Each gatha nourish and bring us back to the present moment, but at the same time nourish our aspiration energy. When we invite the bell, that is an act of nourishing our aspiration. 3 karmas, body and mind united. I send my heart along with the sound of the bell, and I wish that everyone who listens to this sound will transcend the suffering and the word of birth and death. Or when we wear the slippers or our shoes, we also have the aspiration. We wish that everyone can have the mindful steps. Or when we close the door or open the doors, we wish that everyone can close the path of 3 negative karmas and open to the path of peace. So every act also nourish the aspiration within us. And it's not about how much do we practice, but the most important thing is that we are being watered. We are nurturing our bodhisattva, our aspiration. So to conclude the sharing today, I would like to share a story. This story happened at the Buddha's time. At the Buddha's time, there was an old lady who bought the oil to offer the oil for lamps to offer to the Buddha. And at that time, the king Asathé
So the king had invited the Buddha and the monks to the palace to offer a meal and to listen to the teachings. And he also offered food to the hungry people. And it was also during the time he thought what would be more meaningful now to do. And so one of the official told him that you can offer light to the Buddha and the Sangha at the Jeta Grove monastery. And the king was very happy about it, because in Buddhism, offering light represents offering of insight, understanding. And so that's why on our Buddha altar we always have like the incense or candles. And so the king ordered to send oil and lamps to the Jeta Grove monastery. And there's an old woman who had witnessed the king's people bringing oil and lamp to the monastery, and she felt so inspired, but she wanted to offer something to the Buddha and the Sangha, but she was so poor, she didn't have anything to offer. So she went begging, and she had two unit of money, and she bought oil and the lamp. And the people who sold the oil said, "Why don't you use this $2 to buy food instead of like buying this?" And she said, "I wanted to offer the oil and the lamp to the Buddha and his Sangha, but actually I don't have any lamp." And he said, "Do you have any lamp for me to borrow so that I can use this oil?" So in the past, it was just like a bowl with like whisk, and so she pour oil in it, and she light up the lamp, and she offer it to the monastery. And so that night, the monastery was filled with light, the light from the lamps that were offered by the king. And everyone was practicing really wholeheartedly that night, staying up really late to practice. And everyone was directed. So she offered the lamps, and then she touched the earth in the direction of the Buddha's hut. And she knows that with this little light, little oil, the little lamp, that it may not last very long into the night. So she made the aspiration, she made a vow that may this light, with her wholehearted aspiration, to help this light last always. And then she touched the earth 3 times. And as the new day started, the Buddha asked the monks to turn off all the lamp. So the monks, they turn off all the lamp except her lamp. They could not turn off. Even if they have like supernatural power to blow it out, it would not turn off. It would not be blown out. And so they told the Buddha about this. And so the Buddha has said this is an offering of someone who is offering with a deep aspiration, who offered wholeheartedly. And it sounds like a very, it's a fairy tale. But this story, it's an inspiration for us because it's teaching us that if when we have an aspiration and that we continue to nourish that aspiration, that it will ripen to beautiful fruits. So whenever we do something, if we put our aspiration in it, if we offer an aspiration to whatever we're doing, it can go a long way in bringing fruits to us. So I would like us to reflect on our aspirations, because these aspirations are intimately connected to our spiritual path. So when we have an aspiration, it is our path, it is our spiritual path, and that finding the right practice for us that can help us to open the path, to lighten up the path, so that we can be present for ourselves and present to support and help other people around us. And this is also my practice, and I know I have a lot to learn and a lot to practice, and this is a sharing and offering, so that we can all learned and shared, discussed, and find ways to cultivate our aspirations.